All right, welcome back to another episode. This is Trailbreaker, Shogun Trailbreaker episode 3. Yeah, it's been a little bit since I uploaded the last episode, but yeah, hope you like it. Cheers. All right, so I noticed this little sticker on the back of the frame, so I just want to get it off. Yeah, didn't really need it on there, just clean it up a bit. But basically just used a little bit of WD-40 and some kitchen towel and a hairdryer, and it came off. Here, just putting the cockpit together, just because it's been super windy outside. Sometimes it's easy just to have everything together before you drop it in. So yeah, just putting on the bolts here. Not putting it on super tight yet, just because I don't know what angle the bars are going to be at, but just tight enough to hold it. And then putting these levers on the end. You can see I'm having a little bit of trouble here, but I ended up just filing it down a little bit. And then they slipped on pretty easy. And then yeah, just measuring with the grips how far to put the levers down. And then I ended up putting these old grips back on, just using water. But yeah, we'll see how we go with those. But yeah, that's pretty much on there. All right, next thing I was going to do is just take a look at the headset. It wasn't the smoothest, so I just wanted to clean it out and see if I can make it a little bit better. So yeah, just taking out the bearings. You can see the bearings on the bottom is kind of like rusted through. But yeah, kind of had this crazy roller type bearing that I haven't seen before. But yeah, I'm just going to chuck in vapor rust and see if we can clean up some of the rust. So going to leave that overnight, and while we wait for that, I'm going to clean up the headset bearings. Once again, just using WD-40 here, the headset cups I mean, and yeah, pretty straightforward here. Same thing with the bearings, just using WD-40 and a kitchen towel, and it cleans up pretty good. Just make sure it's not pitted or anything. Make sure you don't lose any bearings, and just a little washer as well. Here is the next day, and I took out the roller type bearing, but you can see it's real strange because like some of the bearings are still silver, but the other bearings are black, and the whole ring itself is black. So I don't know what happened there, but it's clean now, I guess. And then here, now that everything's clean, I'm just gonna put put everything back together. Make sure you grease it up. I kind of just load it up with grease here. Can't really put too much grease in the headset, so yeah, you can just wipe off the extra. And then here, just greasing up cleaning up the top cup. I forgot to clean up, so just clean that real quick, and then yeah, greasing it up and putting the cleaned up bearings in there. And then yeah, a little tip: how tight do you want this this threaded headset? So basically, you just want to screw it down so it's tight enough where there's no play, but it feels smooth and it doesn't feel like it's putting too much pressure on the bearings. But yeah, if you do it, once you do it a few times, you'll get used to kind of what pressure you need. And then here, just putting on the stem, grease up the inside, grease up the quill stem there. You can see I have that little adapter in there as well. But yeah, you can see I got the grips and the levers all ready to go, so it was easy just to kind of just drop it in. But yeah, I kind of just sat it in there for a little bit and then just make sure I put grease everywhere. Yeah, that ended up working pretty well, slid in nice, wiped off the extra grease, and then yeah, just tighten it up. Once again, I didn't do it super tight just because I didn't know if the stem was going to be aligned to my wheel, so just tight enough just to hold it in there, and then you can adjust it later. Yeah, and the same thing with the handlebars here. I try to adjust it so it's kind of level with the top tube. But yeah, once again, once the bike's finished, you can make your minor adjustments. Here, just putting on the bottom bracket. So I ended up getting, or I actually had a bottom bracket that was around the same size, a sealed one. So I just ended up chucking that in. Yeah, nothing too crazy here. Just grease up the tapers. I know I got some comments on my Instagram saying people don't grease up tapers, but yeah, I like to put a little bit on there. If you ever kind of stripped crank arms, you'll know why to put grease on the tapers. Alright, the first little problem I ran into was my front mech now didn't fit this big ass chainring that I decided to put on. So yeah, you can see it goes all the way up to the bottom mount. It's not high enough, and if I put on top of the bottom mount, then it's too high. So I end up having this spare front mech that I could put on, but it wasn't the right tubing size. So I ended up having to kind of shim it with this rubber thing. These rubber things you get from locks and yeah, lights and stuff like that. So I ended up just cutting it down to size and putting it on. And yeah, kind of lucked out here. It worked. It ended up working pretty well. So pretty stoked on this one. Yeah, and it's on there pretty solid. It's not going to move or anything. So yeah, if anyone kind of runs into this problem or they don't have the right size derailleur, you can always just shim it with a bit of rubber. Alright, so just getting on the other parts on the bike, just the rear D, pretty easy here, just screw it on. And also putting the seat post in, make sure you grease it up. I actually changed this instead of a quick release. I ended up just using a bolt because it was just a little bit cleaner, and just for this bike I'm not going to be putting up the seat up and down too much. So yeah, decided to go with just a clean bolt for this one. And then here, yeah, just putting on the cantilever brakes. Just make sure you put a little bit of grease on where it pivots, and then there's a little area where you put the pinion, and I just put in the middle hole out of the 3 holes, and that seems to work for me. You can change the kind of spring pressure if you adjust where you put the little pin. But yeah, usually I just start off with the middle hole, and that works pretty well. Yeah, so I think I noticed when I was looking through the bike that the crank was spinning off axis. So yeah, that was a little bit of pain, and I want to see if I can kind of fix this a little bit. So you can see it's high on the left and on the right. So yeah, I'm gonna shim this a little bit with just a beer can. Yeah, here it is, just cut out just like a little tab. And what you need to do is figure out where it's sticking out, and then put the tab on the opposite side to kind of even it out. And then just make sure you cut it to size and put it on. And yeah, that seemed to help it a lot, so I was happy with that. Alright, so next thing, I ended up taking off the grips just because they didn't look quite right and I wasn't happy with them. And also the length of the bars seemed to be really long, something seemed to be off. So I decided to cut them down a little bit. You can see also, like, when you stand over the bike, it's going to be really wide and it's going to hit my knees and stuff. So I just want to give it a little bit more room, make it less wide. So I ended up just cutting the bars down. I put the grips on here just to mark it off where I'm going to cut it. And then yeah, just make sure you have enough room for the display. So here you can see I measured it so it just goes just before the curve, so there's a little bit of room in case I want to adjust it a little bit. And then yeah, I'm just kind of going to freestyle it and cut an inch off each side. And then here you can use kind of a little clamp as a guide. I just use like an old light clamp, but yeah, I know people gave me suggestions in the past just to use a pipe cutter, but yeah, all I had was a hacksaw, so I ended up using the hacksaw. And yeah, that seemed to work as well. And then I ended up, well, yeah, just make sure you file the ends so you don't cut yourself or cut your grips. And then I did the same thing on the other side. So yeah, the bars are still pretty wide. There's measure around 700, which felt pretty comfortable to me. But yeah, it's always risky cutting your bars because once you cut them, you can't glue it back on. So yeah, make sure you kind of measure a few times before you cut it. Just make sure you sand it down with some wet and dry sandpaper. make it nice and smooth. Putting the grips on here, just yeah, I just use water. I know people use like alcohol and hairspray, stuff like that, but waters always seem to work for me, so I'm just sticking to that. And yeah, they haven't moved or slipped or anything, so yeah, I think the key thing is just make sure they dry out. Don't put tons of water in there, just enough just to get the grip on. But yeah, I was pretty happy with how it looks now with the Uri grips. Uri or Ari, I don't know. Alright, just changing the tires out for some slicks here, just because it's going to be more of a city bike for me. Yeah, nothing too crazy here. Just take off the old tires and put on the new ones, pump it up. Make sure you take your time when you're doing this so you don't get a pinch flat or anything like that. But yeah, I have a tutorial on how to change a flat tire if you want more information. And then here, just taking off the cassette, and I really just want to get rid of that dork disc there. Yeah, just I don't really like them. So yeah, just taking off the cassette, and then that little plastic disc just ended up snapping straight away. So I can chuck that in a bin. Usually, yeah, if it's pretty old, the plastic gets pretty brittle, so it's going to snap anyway. And then here, just yeah, I've taken the cassette off, so I'm going to give that a clean as well. Before I do that, I'm going to clean the tires. But yeah, I just use these kind of like wet wipes, and they seem to work really well. Get rid of all the gunk. These tires I got secondhand off Tom, so thank you, Tom, for those. He donated them to the channel, but yeah, I kind of cleaned them up, and I think they look pretty fresh now. Here with the cassette, I'm just going to clean it up. I couldn't tell if it was black paint or it was just like black grease. So I ended up, yeah, just cleaning up with WD-40, giving it a spray, just using a wire brush. Brushed all of it down, try to get rid of the gunk and the rust off. Just used the kitchen towel to kind of do that. And yeah, ended up being pretty clean. But yeah, you can see it's still black. So yeah, basically it's just it was painted black. If you see on the cogs and also on the other side, a black cassette. But yeah, all ready to go now. And then I also wanted to clean up the wheels a little bit. Yeah, I cleaned up the rims and stuff and the spokes. But here, I'm just showing you cleaning out the hub. Yeah, really goes a long way. I think once you just give it a little bit of a clean, it makes it makes the wheels look new again. And then here, just putting on the cassette. Nothing too crazy, just tying it on. That's looking pretty good. And then here, doing the same with the front wheel. A little bit of WD-40 and just a wire brush, and then yeah, just a towel to kind of get on the inside. And then here, time to put the cables on so you can measure out the cables. So yeah, just make sure you measure a few times before you cut the cable, cut the housing, sorry. Just make sure you give it the right length. You just want to make sure it has a nice curve to it and there's no kind of sharp bends. You're not trying to bend the wire that's going to be going on the inside. You just want to give it a kind of like a smooth line. So yeah, you can see how it goes. Here I also, make sure you turn like left and right on your wheel just to make sure you're getting enough cable. But yeah, that's kind of how I do it. Make sure your levers and everything is in the kind of the right place. Otherwise, it's going to mess up your cable length a little bit as well. So don't forget to do that. But yeah, I was pretty happy with that. So I just kind of dry fit all the cables. Once you cut the cables, also make sure you file off the ends and make sure you can stick a little spoke in there to clean up the hole. And then here, yeah, putting the cables on. What I like to do, I like to stretch out the cables a little bit, kind of like a guitar string, before you put them in. And also, I put a drop of, or a couple of drops of chain lube, synthetic chain lube, inside the housing, just to make it slide a bit smoother. Here installing candy brakes, so just unwind it around 7 times. Make sure this cable guy goes all the way to the end and pull it tight, and then you can use this little screw on the right here just to align your brakes so they're kind of parallel with the wheel. And then what I do is I put the brake pads all the way to the rim, so they sit flush against the rim, and then you just unwind it at the lever, and it should give you enough room to clear your brake now. And that process works pretty well for me. Next thing, trim off all the cables. I don't have any cable ends, so just excuse me while before I get new ones. They're going to be cable endless. I know people have roasted me in the past about that, but yeah, I'll put some on once I get some. And then here just putting on the chain. Nothing too crazy here. Just make sure you measure it out right, the right length, and also you can adjust, your shifting using the barrel adjuster and also your high and low limit screws. Probably worth to mention, because I only have 2 chain rings on the front mech, you just use your high and low limit screws, kind of limit it so it doesn't pop the chain off on either side, and then that should work out. Here, just putting on the saddle. I ended up taking this old this saddle off the Kona, and I have another saddle for the Kona, a newer mountain bike one that I'm going to put on. So this one's going on this older build, and then I just put it horizontal to the ground, top of the seat, horizontal. But yeah, you can adjust this depending on how you like it. Here, putting on the pedals, grease it up a little bit. Mine already had grease on it, so I didn't put extra grease on there. And then the last thing here, just putting on this little shark fin. You just use zip ties. Pretty easy here. Just put in the middle, cut it off the excess zip ties with a razor blade, and that's basically it. Yeah, just one more thing. Just make sure you give the bike a once over. Check all the bolts. Make sure they're nice and tight. And here's the finished bike. that's the video. Hope you liked it. Yeah, super hyped how the bike turned out. The gearing actually worked pretty good. Like for going on flats, you can go pretty fast, and then uphills aren't too bad either. So yeah, let me know what you think. Big shout out to Tom for the tires, and big shout out to Jackson for the turbo saddle. Also, big thank you to anyone who bought a shirt or bought some stickers. Yeah, that really helps, so appreciate that. Shirts have sold out now, but if you want stickers, you can hit the link in my description. Otherwise, stay tuned for the next video. Peace.